So I painted the picture of the future in advance to make sure that we didn't grow apart. When we get there, we're both going to know what to expect, and I'll focus on improving that.
And that one check-in question, I'll say it one more time, it will change the game for you. What about me, my character, or our relationship has been bothering you lately that you wish didn't, but it still sort of does?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, Next Level University weekly Meetup Monday for week number 63, how to not outgrow your partner, aka how to make sure that you're growing together. So what Alan and I have seen, the most common thing is one person in the relationship is very, 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 very ambitious, and the other one might not be. They might not have the same size goals. They might not have the same visions or the same ambitions. And oftentimes what will happen is one person will either filter themselves to make sure. So a great analogy for this, think of the rubber band. Okay, so say Alan and I are attached via rubber band. If Alan outgrows me, quote unquote, too fast, the rubber band might snap. But what if Alan grows and pulls me up, grows and pulls me up, right? And then I grow past Alan and pull him up, and vice versa. Just repeat on that. A lot of people are afraid that they're going to break the hearts of somebody they love because they're going to grow outside of what they're capable of.
A lot of people believe that you have to choose between success and love. And while that is true in some cases, it's not always the case. And so what Kevin and I want to help you understand and help you do, and this is something that I've struggled with a lot in my past, now something that I do feel very competent in, but basically we want to help you grow together again and not apart. The rubber band is a great analogy. You want to stretch the rubber band. You want to grow. You want to make sure that who you are is somewhat challenging to your partner, not in a challenging way of like against them, more of a challenging so you can create the necessity for one another. The quote that I use for this is that the love you have for one another actually can be the catalyst and the necessity to fuel the growth. So Emilia and I do relationship talks every week. We're actually 36 weeks in, and it's every single Saturday. And basically we sit down with couples and we talk about relationships. It can be a married couple. It can be people who are single looking for their dream partner. It can be people who are in a relationship, all the different stages. And one of the things that I can tell you for sure is, like Kevin said, there is always one partner who is more aspirational than the other partner, but the contrast between the two partners regarding their aspirations varies. Sometimes it's someone super aspirational, the other person isn't at all. Sometimes it's they're both pretty aspirational, but one is aspirational at a higher level. So the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about today is I have a client, and I'll keep this completely anonymous, basically who aspires to be the most extraordinary version of herself. And her dreams and goals, statistically speaking, are unbelievably high. Her goals are 0.0001% of the population ever shoot this high. And that's great. I encourage that very much. That's part of why I love coaching this person. But she actually is in an arena and in an industry that requires a lot of social media influence. And she's with a partner who struggles with insecurity regarding this person being on social media. So from my perspective as this person's coach, it's like you really are going to have to, in my opinion, put yourself out there more on social media. You're going to have to really let your light shine more, higher and brighter and more in order to get more influence, to help more people, to grow your business, which will then help more people. But their partner has a fear and an insecurity that the more this other person shines, and the more they put themselves out there on social media, the more they're going to get DMs from creepers, or the more they're going to get DMs from other potential partners, other potential mates. And so this other partner, through no fault of her own, is actually kind of unintentionally, her fear is becoming the fear of my client. And again, that's okay. This is very common. It's how do you deal with that? And that's one thing you guys are going to understand at the end of this keynote. It really has to do with, it's not, almost no relationship doesn't have some tension on that rubber band from time to time. It's what do you do with that tension? Do you lift the other partner up? Do you empower the other partner? Do you help teach them, guide them, and those things? Are you clear about what you aspire to and why? And so the first principle here is called the alignment audit. So that client that I told you about has a really high goal, and that goal is actually in conflict with someone else's belief And that belief is subconscious, basically saying, if this other person shines on social media, they might leave me. Okay. That's what we call a goal and a belief in conflict. So there's something that Emilia and I co-created called the alignment framework. And it has to do with core aspirations, core values, and core beliefs. If you're a long-term listener of the show, you've heard me say this a dozen times. But what you haven't heard me say maybe is that when you're with an intimate partner, it's whether or not you have goals, core values, or core beliefs in conflict that are going to cause those challenges. And the key when you do have those conflicts is to sit down and to identify them. So Kevin and I, same deal. We're obviously not intimate partners, but we're business partners. So it's the same idea. If I have a goal that conflicts with a core value of Kevin's, we're going to have to sit down and talk about that. Otherwise, the relationship will always have this weird sort of subconscious energetic tension. And I think that goals in conflict, core values in conflict, and beliefs in conflict, in my opinion, at this stage of the game, is the thing that breaks relationships up or causes tension in relationships more than anything else.
I have talked very openly about this. So I was actually the bottleneck on a previous relationship. So there's two ways we can look at this. One, you're listening to this because you're super ambitious and maybe you're terrified to outgrow somebody you love. Or on the other end, maybe you love somebody who is super ambitious and you're worried that you might hold them back. I've been that person. I've told this story many times. My girlfriend wanted to travel to California to chase her dreams, 5 or 6 years ago, one of my ex-girlfriends. And I was so insecure that I told her not to go. So the person, the Kevin, the man you see today is super into inspiring and motivating people and putting air into their wings so they'll go do their thing. But back in the day, I was super insecure. So I've actually been on, honestly, both sides of this. So it's very near and dear to my heart. And we want to make sure that, like Alan said, a lot of people think you have to choose. Either I'm going to be successful or I'm going to stay in love. Like there is a way to do both. It's work.
Can you explain for everyone what it felt like to feel afraid to lose somebody? Because you mentioned this earlier on a podcast episode we did. Mm. You're not afraid necessarily to lose love. You're afraid to lose the person.
Yeah. For me, I think I was afraid to lose love because we had a good relationship, but I think that I was just super insecure. It was one of those things it's the fear of being left behind. If this person succeeds, and honestly, and you and I have talked about this, and I don't think we've ever done it live, but early on, I had the fear of you leaving me behind. It was like, if he gets on this stage, like what if he forgets about Jeff and all the work Jeff did to get us here? And so I've had that fear with you. And luckily I've leveled up and you've been very supportive of that. But I just think it's an insecurity of not knowing your own value, the fear of being left behind, the fear of being forgotten.
How did you overcome that?
I got broken up with.
No. I mean, you and
I talked about it. I just said, hey man, like I get nervous. Like I've admitted, like, yeah, one of my core fears is being left behind. It just always has been. I think it's from my childhood. So I think I was just honest about it, and you've always been very receptive, which I'm grateful for.
Absolutely. And if anyone's listening, I think that's the key, is the fact that he was honest with himself first and then honest with me. And then we can now work together as a team about it. It doesn't affect us almost at all anymore, from my understanding. I
still have some reversions, but not nearly as much as I did. I actually have some points about that, but I'm not going to go into them right now. So I'll never forget. I actually went, we have a place called the Top of the Hub in Boston. You ever been to the Top of the Hub?
Yep.
And it's no longer there, I don't think. I think they actually got rid of it because of COVID. But in order to get to this, it's literally at the top of a skyscraper. And you take this elevator up like 50 flights of stairs. And I don't like heights. And this thing is like a Six Flags ride. It is hauling A. Okay, things flying. Now, I have a fear of that. So when I enter an elevator, the first thing I always do is check the little certificate on the side that states when the last time the elevator was serviced. Now, why am I talking to you about elevators? Because you can do that with your relationship, right? If an elevator is not serviced and the thing breaks, it's going to crash and burn and people will get hurt. Your relationship is the same thing. So Alan and I have talked, pretty good story, right?
Yeah, it was strong.
Alan and I have talked a lot about this, and we go really, really in depth when it comes to group coaching about this. But Alan and I have our own unique check-ins that we do with our amazing partners. So what it does, it gives you the opportunity to proactively give each other feedback. So the other night, I had been jeffing in my communication with my schedule, and Taryn said, hey, can we sit down tonight and do a check-in? And immediately I was like, oh no, I am in trouble here. And I said,
we need to talk.
Yeah, right. But it's a proactive, safe space to give each other feedback and look for improvements, right? Instead of letting the elevator swing down 90 flights and hit the bottom, you're proactively checking once a week. How are we doing? So this is what we do. We go through the 5 love languages. I think Alan's going to go through some of those later, right? Mm-hmm. Then we go through the 6 basic human needs. So it's basically, did I meet your needs this week? How well did I meet your needs? What could I do better? That's the goal. If you want a next level relationship, it takes next level work ethic. It takes next level feedback. It takes humility. It takes a lot of things. And we want to make sure that you're growing together. One way to grow together is to give each other constructive, positive feedback.
When Emilia and I first got together, we would do check-ins that legitimately would last several hours, sometimes 4 or 5 hours. That was very, very intense, and I loved it. And so did she. It got challenging at times, but it was a ton of growth in a very short amount of time. It's not just how long you've been together, it's how deep you can go. But one of the things that I'll say now is that her and I now check in every single weekend, once per weekend. It's every Sunday, but we don't do it to that extent. So some of the check-ins can be anything as simple as a couple of the questions that we have. I just want to give you guys one of them that we use most often because this is the one that I've found to be the most valuable. Okay, what about me, my character, or our relationship has been bothering you lately that you wish didn't, but it still sort of does? See, this is the question that will identify any little nuance. Now, it's a scary question to ask, because you're going to get the answer. Ask the question and you shall receive an answer. And so, but it gives her permission to really uncover some of that stuff that's been flying beneath the radar. It can be anything even simple. It can be about the dishes. It can be about the bed being made. It can be anything simple. And it's not because you want to berate your partner or anything like that or make them feel bad. It's because I just want to understand any little nuance that I can do to be better. I want to understand that. And so imagine if we want to be successful podcasters, but we never asked each other for feedback. Right after this meetup, you all know we're going to ask the team for feedback on how we did. And I ask Kevin after every podcast episode, constructive feedback. What do you think I could do better? And he's like, well, this story probably didn't land, or this wasn't that relatable. So just understand that the same thing goes for your relationship. And that one check-in question, I'll say it one more time, it will change the game for you. What about me, my character, or our relationship has been bothering you lately that you wish didn't, but it still sort of does? And that question's a game changer.
Real quick.
Yeah.
So remember, for those of you who have been following us for a while, you might remember Top Notch Live, an event that we co-hosted in Lowell, Mass. Alan and I were spread so thin at that time. We didn't have any money. There was just like so much going on that I remember doing a check-in with Taryn, and this is like a running joke now, but I literally got a 3 out of 10. And I think it was Love and Connection, because I was spread so thin that I just forgot that I wasn't pouring into my relationship as much as I should have been. So it's a sign. All you're going to do is you're going to get signs of what you're doing well and what you're not. And it's a quick fix. You're able to pivot so you don't run the thing off the road. There still will be a little bit of pain because it's feedback, but it's constructive pain that you can use to get better.
And the question, again, if you don't have self-belief or self-worth, it's going to be very hard to hear that feedback.
For sure.
Especially if someone answers something about your character. Kevin and I have had some really tough conversations about core values and conflict, and we've always gotten better from them. But I think that's because we had self-belief and we helped each other get better. So don't forget to be there for the support after the fact. And the cool thing about this too is when you ask your partner this question, most likely they will want to reciprocate. It's like, okay, well, what about me? Right? And that's a really good thing. But don't do it for that reason, because they might sense that. Okay, so I remember it was 2 years ago, not 2 years ago. Emilia and I have been together for about a year and probably 7 or 8 months. It was at the very beginning of our relationship, and we were doing Friendsgiving with a bunch of our friends. And this was pre-COVID, actually.
Yep.
And Emilia and I were supposed to make pies. We were going to make mini pies. We were actually super late that day. That was our bad. Yeah. Our bad. It was a calendar jeffing there. But basically, we were in the store and we were getting the stuff to make the mini pies. And she asked me a question, and this was pretty early. We were only been dating for, I think, a month, maybe not even. And she asked me, do you like grocery shopping? Right in the middle of the grocery store. And I had that moment of like, is this going to be a problem if I don't like grocery shopping? Because in the past, there have been partners I've had where it's like, if I don't like grocery shopping, they presuppose that they're going to have to do all the grocery shopping, which is not at all the case. But I just had the courage in that moment. And I was like, honestly, I don't. I never have. I don't think I ever will, but I care about you. And if you care about grocery shopping, then I will care about grocery shopping because I care about you. That which is equal to the same thing is equal to each other. Euclid's common notions. It's a mathematical thing. But anyways, okay. So in that moment, I was honest. And I honestly was afraid to lose love in that moment a little bit. And I didn't. She ended up being so grateful. And now we both actually, neither one of us grocery shop. We order the food ahead of time. We go and pick it up and we actually alternate, which is awesome because we're both about optimization. But had I been dishonest in that moment of, yeah, I totally love this, I don't think I would be authentic. And I think that would eat away at me, which I've been guilty of in the past. And I think all of us have been there at times. So Emilia and I came up with something called the truth dial. It's more her than me, honestly. She came up with this. We just use it in the we and relationship talks. The truth dial is simple. So picture you're in front of a stove. That little dial, my stove at home growing up was from 0 to 10. 10 was the hottest. So 10 is the most truthful in this dial. Okay. My question for you is, how truthful are you? Where is that truth dial with your intimate partner? I am so unbelievably honest with Emilia. Put it this way. She understands me at a deeper level than anyone else on this planet, who I am today. And next closest is Kevin. But that's because I've been honest. I've been vulnerable. I've been truthful about my past, my present, and the future I truly want, even when it was challenging. And that Thanksgiving mini pie thing is just a small example of one of those moments where I wanted to dial the truth dial a little low, and instead I dialed it up, up, up. If you are not being honest with yourself, your relationship is not going to be able to grow and flourish long term. You got to be honest with yourself, and then you got to communicate that honesty even when it's difficult. That way you can grow together and not apart. I do know that many couples aren't honest with themselves. I've been guilty of that in the past. And then they wake up a year later and they go, I'm not happy. What happened? We used to be so connected. We used to be so in love. We used to be so intimate. We used to have sex all the time. What happened? Honestly, you evolved, but you weren't truthful with yourself or your partner about it probably. So you couldn't grow together. You didn't even have the opportunity to integrate. And so I think that's a good example.
Well, and growth starts inside. At the end of the day, when we talk about growth, it's always inside. It starts with awareness. It starts with clarity. It starts with us doing the hard things. It's the same thing in your relationship. So I think one of the most important things is getting to know your partner better, but getting to know their past, getting to know their traumas, getting to know their fears, getting to know their insecurities. One of the things that is kind of taboo now that I think should be made just a little bit safer is talking about our past relationships. Like, how I asked Taryn that one time, I said, how have your past relationships shaped you into the person I know today? What a powerful question. It's a great question. But so many people villainize that.
Right.
Like, I can't talk about my past relationships because, somebody might get jealous. Somebody might get insecure. They might think I'm still talking to that person. They might think I think it was better. But if you really want to make sure you're not growing apart and you're growing together, you have to understand each other at a deep, deep, deep level. And I think there has to be a level of vulnerability within yourself separately, but also together. Like Alan said, Emilia knows more about him, knows him at a deeper level than anybody else. Taryn knows more about me. She's seen me cry often. I tell her when I'm overwhelmed. I could do better for sure, and I'm trying to do better, right? But it's this awareness. It's the level of awareness. It's the level of honesty. It's the level of truth. It's the level of she knows who I really am. She knows about my childhood. I know about hers. So I think that's an important thing too. If you are afraid to grow apart, make sure you're consistently learning about your partner. Not just what they like to eat, not the movies they like, not the stores they like to shop at, but who they really are deep down as a person. I think that's something that never goes out of style, and there's always something to learn.
For sure.
Always and forever. That's my point.
Okay.
You see how I connected it.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the biggest issues for our listeners that we've seen is not everybody has people in their corner trying to lift them to the next level. And even the people who are trying to help don't always know how.
That's why Kevin and I created Next Level Group Coaching. It's a 3-month program on teams of 10 with all people committed to achieving their goals. Click the link in the show notes for more information.
And we only take 10 people at a time, so make sure you get in quick.
So one thing that did come up for me while Kevin was talking was insecurity. I think insecurity is hurting relationships.
For sure.
And I think vulnerability is the cure. And I think that that's kind of exactly what Kevin was saying. But if you do have an insecurity, you have to identify it. I feel like
we should be turned for this episode. A lot of talking between the Jeffs.
You and I.
Between two Jeffs. I
know. This is good. So have you admitted your insecurities to yourself? And how are they affecting your relationship? That's something, if you are out there and you're not driving, write this down. Have I admitted my insecurities to myself? Have I been vulnerable enough with my partner to share those insecurities? And then what am I proactively doing about them? I think that we all have things that we're subconsciously avoiding, and I think that they're affecting us more than we realize. So that's just something I wanted to bring to the table. Okay. So again, we talked about relationship talks 36 weeks in. That's just a lot of different couples that we've gotten a chance to meet all over the world, study. It's been honestly amazing. I've probably learned more in the last 36 weeks than maybe ever, because this is not an arena that I feel like I've spent my life mastering. And now I feel like I'm really getting there. But I remember in the past, as you raise your awareness, you reflect on your past and you go, oh, I really messed that up. And I didn't realize that I was messing that up. One of the things for me, so Emilia mostly came up with these, but we kind of co-created them. They're called the 19 conscious love languages. So if you've ever heard of the 5 love languages by Gary Chapman, that book, but we expanded on it big time. So for example, food is a love language. Many cultures share food. That's like a good example of one. But I remember my past partners, one in particular, and this is nothing against her, but she's extremely quality time driven, like extremely, like loves fun, unique experiences, loves to go to restaurants and like order special, unique food, loves to get to special, unique coffee shops that are local. And I think in hindsight, I really didn't care much about that stuff. I cared about her, but I didn't like that stuff. And Emilia and I actually came up with our core values. We call it the 10 commandments of the we, which is our relationship. And one of them was adventure. And Kevin and I had talked about it. And he's like, honestly, I don't know about that adventure one. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'm not being too honest with myself on that. And basically what I talked to Emilia about was like, I don't think I have as much of a core value of adventure as you do. For me, I do like to grind. I do like to work. I do like to focus. I like to do, like, my workouts are pretty structured. I'm a very structured man. But that doesn't mean we can't go on adventures. And so in my past relationships, I was definitely putting a lot of effort in, genuinely, to make the relationship work. But I was not allocating my effort based on the love languages of my partner as well as I should have and could have. And now I'm very much hyper-conscious and acutely aware of what Emilia's love languages are, so that I can focus my efforts on what really does fulfill her in a relationship. But basically what we have is the 19 conscious love languages, but let me give you an example. So imagine we actually have this whole spreadsheet, and there's 19 different love languages. One of them Kevin came up with, vulnerability, is on there. And basically what we do with couples is we have them rate them from 0 to 10 in order of most importance. Now imagine for a second if you have an intimate partner who their level of importance for receiving sexual intimacy is a 10, but yet your level of importance for giving sexual intimacy is a level 2. That's what we call an 8 delta, an 8 variance. That means you're probably missing one another. There's a love language not being fulfilled. And so I don't obviously want to get into the entire Excel spreadsheet, but what I need, what I would recommend everyone do is check in with your love languages. There's a bunch of different ones. You can DM me if you want to see them, but like sharing food is one of them. Sexual intimacy is one of them. Deep conversations is a big one. Supporting one's goals, that's one of my biggest ones. And I'll tell you this really quick story. One time, Emilia woke up early, went out into the snow, we're in New England, and wiped off my entire car. I had a 9 a.m. meeting, and I would have been late if she didn't do that. And I got to the studio, and I was like, this was the nicest thing ever, to just get to my car and like drive to the studio and not have to do any of that. And I'm like, wait a minute, acts of service I didn't think were that important to me. Oh, it's not the act of service. It's the fact that she did it to make sure I wasn't late to my meeting, and my meeting was really important, which is goals, supporting my goals. So supporting my endeavors, my goals, is 10 out of 10 for me, like ridiculously important to me. And so anyone who wasn't good at that, I didn't get along with very well. And I didn't realize this. You know, I'm at chapter 32 of this life now. I didn't realize this back then, but just check in with it. What are your love languages? What are your partner's love languages? Are there love languages that might not even be on Alan and Emilia's list that maybe they are unique to me? And am I in the habit of fulfilling those?
One of the biggest things I miss for Alan and I is traveling to interview people. Over the last 3 years, we've been to, my goodness, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Florida, New York,
Arizona,
Toronto, California, Toronto. We've been all over the place. When you're traveling, what happens? You get an itinerary. You know what you're going to do. You know what hotel you're staying at. You know where the restaurants are. You know what you're doing. A relationship is just like that. So you have to paint a picture for the future, right? I know that I told Taryn early on that this is the life that I am envisioning for us. Like, this is what I currently see. I said, Alan and I are going to have the opportunity to travel a lot. Alan actually told me, and then I told her, because Alan has a deeper vision of the future. This is what I see for us. We're going to have the opportunity to speak all over the world. What is your non-negotiable, and what is your ideal for me being home? Like, if I'm gone for 2 weeks out of the month, what are your feelings on that? And she said, I feel like that's kind of a lot, especially when we have kids and a house and animals. I said, okay, what if we do 1 week out of the month where I am traveling on the road? I'll still call you every night. I'll still be there for you virtually, but we're going to go do speeches and all that. And she said, that's something that we can do. So I painted the picture of the future in advance to make sure that we didn't grow apart. When we get there, we're both going to know what to expect, and I'll focus on improving that. But particularly, and I've had a lot of conversations with clients about this, you have to start painting the picture of what you think the future is going to be. That way it's not a surprise. That way your partner can decide if they actually want to go along for the ride, right? Alan and I want to have the most successful podcast in the self-improvement industry. Mm-hmm. That's going to take a lot of us. That's also going to take a lot of our partners.
Oh, yeah.
And we want to make sure that they're up for that. I know Emilia and Taryn are, but we've also had those conversations. Right. We've had those conversations. So how well are you painting a bright, specific picture for your future? And then how often are you actually checking in with how that's changing? Taryn and I want to have multiple children. At this point, we're actually getting cats. This week, we're going to get a couple of little kitties.
Cat dad.
I'm going to be hashtag cat dad on the gram. So you'll be able to see pictures of them. But as we grow and evolve together, our goals, our ambitions, what we see in the future also grows together. So it's very important to keep checking in with that, because things can change. And you want to make sure that you're aligned, like Alan said, the whole time.
So one of my main mentors said this to me. We were in the gym, and I never, ever forgot it. And this is a man who is in a wonderful relationship now, but he did end up getting divorced. He was extremely, extremely aspirational. And I'll keep it anonymous, of course. But he said, Alan, I don't want you doing anything that feels too unnatural. In a relationship, don't do anything that feels too unnatural. Yes, we grow and we evolve and we change. Yes. We can change our character traits. Yes, we can change our aspirations and core values. Yes, we can change our beliefs. Of course. You don't like your life, change it. We're all about that. But there are certain things about me that I've come to realize I am not going to change, and I don't even want to. Just be honest with yourself. It's really, really important. I mean, even something as simple as that adventure thing, and that's actually my next point here, is Emilia and I now do a quarterly getaway. We call it a leadership retreat. And we were up in New Hampshire. We rented an Airbnb. It was next to Canaan Mountain up in Vermont. And we had this wonderful little weekend. And we do them regularly now. We actually have our next one booked in Maine. I'm not even sure where we're going. Honestly, I already Venmo'd, like we're good. Like it's already booked. I don't even know where. Genuinely. But okay.
It'll be nice.
It will be very nice. I did see the pictures of the Airbnb. It's gorgeous. And it's right by the beach, which is going to be amazing. But my point is, when we go on that New Hampshire trip, when we went on that New Hampshire trip, first of all, the car ride there was amazing. We had deep conversations the entire time. We were listening to peaceful piano. We had little Tucker with us. Or no, I think we had hired the kennel. It's like a fun little doggy kennel. But basically on the way to New Hampshire, we had a wonderful time. Then that night, we did date night. It was Friday night. Then the next day, we made sure the Airbnb had amazing Wi-Fi, by the way. All day Saturday, it was a working day. We had a full schedule. Then Saturday night, date night. Then Sunday was adventure day. We went down to the basin of Canaan Mountain. It was gorgeous. She absolutely adores nature. I love I like nature. I don't feel like I need it as much. I don't care that much about it. I do in terms of like the globe and the environment for sure. What I mean is like for that, it's the most cup-filling experience for her ever. When she's out in nature and warm weather and it's just the best for her. Seeing her light up is what matters to me, genuinely. Seeing her not lit up does affect me. So why not integrate? If I wasn't honest with myself about we need good Wi-Fi and I need to be able to work all day Saturday, that's the God honest truth. I will probably work almost every Saturday for the rest of my life. And she knows that. But that doesn't mean we can't get away. It doesn't mean we can't do fun things. It doesn't mean we can't frolic in nature. It doesn't mean we can't have kids and a family. We just have to figure out how to make it work. Thanks to technology, we can speak all over the world from this room. There's always a way to make it work. And I think you're never going to make something work that you're not honest about. In my past, I definitely made the mistake of doing things that felt too unnatural. The truth of the matter is, and this is just unique to me, but I want everyone out there thinking about themselves, I am aspirational, 24/7, 365. I'm very future-oriented. I'm always aspiring to greater. I don't know how to shut that off. I don't shut that off. When I used to drink, I used to shut that off, but I don't want to do that anymore. And so that being not aspirational is unnatural for me. And I finally decided that anyone who doesn't value that part of me, I'm not going to spend a lot of time with, maybe here and there occasionally, but generally speaking, I'm not. If you have an intimate partner, they must be the ones who understand you at the deepest level. But they can't do that unless you understand yourself at the deepest level and then have the courage to communicate the truth of who you really are and who you aspire to be. Very, very last point for me personally is experience reviews. At the end of New Hampshire, at the end of going away to the lake, or even going to Maine next month, we're going to do an experience review. The drive home is not only a check-in, but an experience review. An experience review is very simple. How was the weekend? What did you enjoy most about the weekend? What did you enjoy least? Did we like the places we ate? What do we want to do next time? It's like, what can we optimize? What can we do differently? Was the Wi-Fi as good as we thought? I'll give you an example. New Hampshire. The Airbnb that we booked was in a beautiful place, and it was actually genuinely gorgeous. Totally worth it. But it was connected to the owner's home. Next time we knew, okay, I don't want to do that next time. Next time I want it to be our own home, our own place. We want the privacy. Okay? But if we didn't do the experience review, we might just keep rinsing and repeating the same patterns. And we wouldn't be growing together. We might be growing apart. And I never, ever, ever want that to happen.
I think this is a good example of, okay, every single thing you do to grow to the next level of your life, you have to do at least that in your relationship.
Right.
At least that. So if you're committed, Alan and I are very committed. You guys have seen us here for the last 64 weeks, 600 and whatever episodes, blah, blah, blah. We're very committed because we're very in on this. We want to change the world. That's our goal. But we also want to have the best, highest quality, most next level relationships possible. And this is going to be a hard truth for many, many people. Your relationship is only as good as you are. Like in terms of your character, in terms of your self-development, in terms of your ability to deal with stress and overcome things and deal with changes and pressure and feedback and communication and hard truths. If you really, really want to make sure that you're not outgrowing your partner or anybody in your life, you have to become the best at all of those things. Like genuinely, you have to level up all those things. Alan and I, it's literally a running joke of like, well, I just got to get better.
Yeah.
Like I just got to get better, because oftentimes if you're really, really focused on growing, you have to take extreme ownership for where you're jeffing in your life. And I've jeffed a lot in my relationship, nothing bad, but like I oftentimes forget to tell Taryn I changed my schedule. I often forget to tell her I got new clients all the time. I'm just like, oh yeah, I got 3 new clients last week. She's like, oh, that would have been, I would have liked to talk about that. I was like, oh yeah, no, for sure. Right. Like, but I have to take ownership of that. And I do believe that if you really, really want a next level relationship now and into the future, you have to have next level commitment. Every ounce that you put into your dreams, your goals, your aspirations, your visions for the future, you have to put at least that into your relationship. And that's why it's so hard. You don't see a lot of people who are very in shape, who are financially independent, and also have amazing relationships. Why? Because every single one of those is difficult by itself. Never mind altogether. Right? So if you really, really value your relationship, check in with your commitment. Are you doing the hard but necessary things, like getting the feedback, like doing experience reviews? Are you doing the check-ins? Are you taking extreme ownership? Are you taking the feedback well and making changes? I know it's difficult, but if you really want your relationship to succeed, you have to continue to level up, and it's going to be that way forever. Forever.
A Sandlot reference right there.
Yeah, for you.
So we're going to switch over to Q&A here in a couple minutes, but the ownership piece is so critical, like Kevin just mentioned. One of the things that I will say, and I'm so grateful that I get to authentically communicate about this, Emilia and I are never pointing fingers at each other. We're always like pointing at ourselves. It's like this weird thing. Whenever we have a challenge, we're immediately taking ownership. Like immediately. I never hear her say, you did this or you did that or you said this or you said that. It's never happened, which, you know, in my past relationships was definitely happening. And I don't do that either. We both are just so quick to turn the mirror on ourselves and take ownership and try to aspire to better. If you don't have a partner like that, 2 things. Check in on whether or not you're like that. Remember, every time you point a finger, there's 3 pointing back at you. I could easily cherry pick everything that Kevin's done wrong in this business. He could do the same.
Many thousands, millions of things.
But it's not going to help us grow together. Why not? If there's something I have to talk to him about, of course, but it's not going to be like, yo, Kevin, you're the worst. Why'd you say or do this? It's not going to be like that. It's going to be like, hey, man, I think we should talk about this. Like, what are your thoughts on this? Seek to understand. Seek to take ownership. When you have 2 partners that are all focused on taking ownership for the challenges of the relationship will flourish. I believe that more than ever. And whether it's business or intimate or any of that, it's really, really important. Just remember, when it's the hardest, that's when it's the most necessary. There's nothing closer to our heart than the people we're the most sexually intimate with. And so like your intimate partner, your person, it's very hard there because your heart is involved. You don't want to get hurt. You don't want to be vulnerable, but you're going to have to. Otherwise, you will inevitably grow apart. So
can I just say one more thing quickly?
Of course.
I think we have to say this because I think it's important anytime you're talking about relationships. Also check in to make sure that your partner is the right partner and you're not putting in work to somebody who doesn't appreciate you and what you're doing. I think that's always important. And I think a lot of people delude themselves into thinking that this person is my person, even though maybe you're just making him fit that, right? Our goal always with meetups, episodes, speeches, coaching calls is to facilitate some kind of change. Not necessarily change your life in this moment, but for you to leave here and ask yourself a question. Maybe you'll leave and say, oh, does my partner really, really want to see me grow at the level I want to grow to? Maybe not. Can I pivot that? I've been trying for a long time. Should I try something new? Maybe we try therapy, whatever it is. Just understand at the end of the day, maybe that person isn't your person. And that's unreasonably difficult to go through, but will you regret not doing it if you don't accomplish what you want?
For sure.
You dig?
I do.